Hello, my name is Kathy O'Hare and welcome to another morning event with Affinity. I'm on the advisory board and for those of you who've never been to an Affinity event before, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It was formed by a group of young Muslims in the year 2000 here in Sydney. Their aim is to promote, and continues to promote the multiculturalism in our society and to foster intercultural and interfaith dialogue by building bridges between different groups in society. And I might bring your attention to the sign over here of Building Bridges, Dialogue, Education and Service. And being on the advisory board, I see that happening all the time. But we've got a little video to show you what the work they've done. So we might put that video on now.
Australia is a warm, welcoming, open country.
Having respect for all people, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of gender, and very, very importantly, regardless of the colour of a person's skin.
People of all kinds are seeing the differences, I think, a little more clearly.
For me, it's about returning to the lived experience that people have on race and ensuring that we live up to the best of our traditions as a country.
The culture that they set will be the culture they inherit.
To be able to share more information, whether it's intelligence or case management material, whatever it is, faster and better.
In addition, the Department of Social Services is working closely with other departments like Employment, Education and Training, Human Services and Immigration and Border Protection on improving employment outcomes for humanitarian entrants.
And this has got to be the largest number that we've had here.
The night is about you and us and as a community.
Learning from each other, that's what Australia allows us to do.
We are working together to make New South Wales safer. In fact, we have done that for many, many years.
As we've come from so many other lands that we were able to meet here as one.
We are the most culturally diverse country in the world.
We all learn a little bit more about ourselves and about our community.
Ramadan is that time of year that Muslims go deep. They reset the clock, take extra time to consciously reflect on their lives and reaffirm their commitment to God and to the precious bonds that connect us all as family and brothers and sisters in humanity.
Courage, dedication, mateship, a sense of fairness.
What we have seen and experienced by words and music this evening are the sort of things that hold us together and enable us to move forward together.
Encourage indeed everyone responsibility.
A great career, and it's wonderful to see them in the context of a great organisation, Affinity.
First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors here, especially Mr. Ahmed Polat. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the Foundation for the opportunity to be here.
Faith is so profoundly important for our development and humanitarian work.
We've got some expertise here that is, when it's brought together, is extremely valuable.
So I asked the Vice President Global of Education for Microsoft why.
And those are the values that I would continue to advocate being taught in law schools in this country.
From a UN report describes Yemen as now the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ahmed, and the Affinity team for allowing me to speak, ladies and gentlemen.
It's an absolute honour to be here tonight to help launch an exciting new lecture series focused on young people.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Barak and the Affinity Intercultural Foundation, I'd like to acknowledge the fantastic work that you do in the community and bringing different cultures and people of different religious backgrounds together. I think it's fantastic.
How human rights safeguards children and young people.
This is indeed a commendable goal, and I'm delighted to be here today to be part of that dialogue.
In my view, Affinity is doing excellent work to inform and advance
multicultural Australia to keep peace in this country. Congratulations to Affinity.
Thank you, Affinity, for this wonderful opportunity. I, with Sev, laud the work of Affinity. There is no other organization working in the field of interreligious relation that does it the way they do it and promote actual encounter of an ordinary sort between people of all sorts of diversities. I think it's heartwarming. It's one of the few things in life that really continue to give me hope and joy.
Thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you again at our future events. Thank you so much.
So that was a summary of the 2017 events, and of course we've had another range this year. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's facilitator, Catalina Flores. Broadcast journalist of 10 years, Catalina has covered everything from leadership spills and federal elections to fires, bushfires and droughts. After an award-winning period in regional New South Wales, she moved to Sydney to cover the general news, but her fascination with politics lured her to the Network 10's Canberra bureau. She covered the Prime Ministership of Tony Abbott before the leadership spill installed Malcolm Turnbull, and travelled with and reported on both campaigns during the 2016 election. Catalina now heads the political bureau at New South Wales Parliament House, where she's already covered the leadership of two premiers. During her career, not only has she reported on major political events, but also broken stories about children in detention, the mistreatment of prisoners in justice systems. Colombian-born and fluent in Spanish, Catalina has a passion for storytelling. Welcome, Catalina.
Thank you, Kathy, for that lovely introduction. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to acknowledge this morning's special guests in attendance, the Greens' Jenny Leong, member for Newtown, also from the Greens, Tamara Smith, member for Ballina, Anne Brewer, the Dean of the University of Newcastle Sydney campus, Abbas Raza Alvi, President of We Australians Are Creative, Jonathan Drennan, Communications Manager at AFL New South Wales ACT, Jacqueline White, Executive Manager of External Management at UTS, Zia Ahmad, Editor at AMUST, and Jane Anderson, Adult Educator at TAFE New South Wales. So now I'm pleased to introduce today's guest, Richard Di Natale. Dr. Richard Di Natale is the leader of the Australian Greens. He was elected to the Federal Parliament in 2010 and re-elected in 2016. He was the Greens' first Victorian Senator. His portfolios include health, multiculturalism and sport. And prior to entering Parliament, Richard was a general practitioner and public health specialist. He worked in Aboriginal health in the Northern Territory, on HIV prevention in India, and in the drug and alcohol sector. His key health priorities include preventative health, public dental care, and responding to the health impacts of climate change. Richard's achievements in Parliament so far include securing almost $5 billion towards Medicare-funded dentistry, winning a campaign to divest $250 million worth of tobacco stocks from the Future Fund, and spearheading campaigns into many issues of public significance, such as dying with dignity, medicinal cannabis and drug law reform. He's the co-convener of the Parliamentary Friends for Drug Policy and Law Reform, Friends of West Papua, Friends of Medicine and Friends of Multiculturalism. Please join me in welcoming Richard Di Natale.